Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time this last week in Owasso at Life Revolution Church. People were hungry for the Word, got into end times, saw how close we are to the coming of the Lord. It's amazing to see people, when they hear all of the signs and we connect the dots, we can see that we're about to see Jesus face to face. Wow. So what we're doing with the End of Days Update is coming to you every week to look at the things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the signs of the Ezekiel 38 war. What happens is the second coming has tons of signs, about 50, and we go through about 10 each week, but the rapture has no signs. But if you can see what's going to happen just after the rapture, then we can kind of tell what's happening. So that's the Ezekiel 38 war. People say, Joe, why do you think it's after the rapture? Well, because in this dispensation, God gave the authority to the church. When we're raptured, it goes back to 7 years of Old Covenant time, and Russia comes down on Israel and God intervenes. He didn't intervene in this dispensation, but instantly He intervenes during that 7-year period. So you're seeing the symptoms of that taking place right now. I mean, even this last week, you had China, you had Russia, and you had Iran doing war games. I mean, that's a precursor for what's going to be happening during the tribulation. Let's pick up with what's happened around Israel, though. Man, so much has happened. You had Israel bombed a huge base right on the border of Iraq of Iranian troops with Shiite militia troops. They were taking out, this is where the convoys were coming down from Iran into Syria to get to Hezbollah. Remember where they were recalculating the missiles? Well, this is the 5th strike in 1 week. And it's amazing how it said they took out all the buildings, so they won't have any place to store any weaponry. They wiped it out. So last week, Putin said that Israel could go in and do whatever they wanted to do. This week, you had 2 Russian airplanes that went and tried to intercept one of their other bombings that they were doing. So you're seeing symptoms of this leading up to the Ezekiel 38 war. It's just radical. But Israel did a massive attack with F-22s and F-35 fighter planes. In the middle of that, you had Iranian Shiite militia troops fire 5 missiles at a U.S. base on the Iraqi border as well. I mean, in the middle of that, in Palmyra, they're making up another Baal god where he originally was. So you have all this coinciding with America fighting back. Now, America took a different stance this week. We haven't been really retaliating against Iran. Remember when they bombed the Saudi Arabian oil fields? America didn't really do anything. But now America's sent fighter planes in to blow up those Iranian troops that fired those missiles at our bases. And that's what Iran said last week. They said we have 21 U.S. bases in their sights. Well, America answered that with some really strong firepower. So I thought that was pretty wild. In the middle of that, you had Iran pull out one of its main bases on the southern part of Syria, which is right by the Golan, the northern part of Israel. Iran pulled the whole base out. Now, in the midst of that, they said their uranium production has gone ballistic to the point that they're going to be ready for nuclear weapons sooner than they thought. And you had the watchdogs in the EU say that it looked like that was actually true. In the middle of that, you had the EU sign papers yesterday to mark all the goods in the West Bank. And I love what Benjamin Netanyahu said. He said, Judea and Samaria will always be a part of Israel. Of course, they had some preliminary elections that still didn't bring anything to pass, so we still don't have a leader in Israel yet, but I know there's certain dates that are going to come to pass that are going to force an election. So many things keep happening that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically these attacks with Iran. The boldness and the brashness of Iran is going to be met headstrong with Israel and America. This is another thing that's happening this week, which is pretty wild. You had 60,000 earthquakes. It looked like this last year. The Earthquake Center was showing that it looks like the Ring of Fire is getting ready to have another huge one. You had, of course, a volcano eruption in New Zealand. You had the anti-Semitism stuff is what is amazing. You had the Jewish grocery store, 6 people got killed. There's many more things happening overseas about that, but this is an interesting one as far as signs go. You have tonight at 12 minutes after 12 Eastern Time, which would be Thursday morning, 12, 12, 12, 12, you have a full moon exactly on that time. So England got excited about that too. It kind of freaks me out, all the things that are happening that are so signals of the coming of the Lord. So let's look at the things we look at every week, the signs. They're blatant, they're exact, they're precise. What are they for? They're to show us how near we are to the coming of the Lord. Number 1, Israel made a nation. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. After that, You got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You got the Temple Mount Institute. You got foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. That's Lamentations 5:18. You had fish showing up in the Dead Sea. Ezekiel prophesied that would happen right before the coming of the Lord. So you have tangible, physical things pointing to Jesus about to come back to the planet. I like, men will be lovers himself with selfie sticks. It's crazy. The pastor this last week in Owasso took a selfie of himself when I preached that. It's so crazy. So you have many, many more signs. I think what the amazing thing is the Temple Mount getting ready to be the focal point of everything. Remember how the UN nations came together saying that they're going to call it by its Muslim name, not the Temple Mount? Well, it'll always be Jerusalem's. It'll always be Israel's. So that's what the greatest war of all wars is going to be over that piece of real estate. So you have all these tangible, physical things you can look at to tell. Blatant, exact, easy to understand. But then after that, you got signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. I mean, if you're driving from Tulsa, Oklahoma City, the signs tell you how close you are to Oklahoma City, but once you get in there, you have signals. You have traffic signals. So you had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles, 4 in a row. NASA calls it a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back, 1948 when Israel was made a nation, 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So you got blood red moons. That's just radical. And then you had the Bethlehem star this last year, first time in 2,000 years. Jupiter, Regulus, Venus came together. At the birth of Jesus, the constellation was Virgo. This last year, the constellation was Leo. Now, the Lord's showing us all these things because He loves us so much. Remember, everything about all these signs is He wants us to accelerate. He wants us to accelerate our race, accelerate our course, because we're about to see Jesus face to face. He wants the church to know how much He loves her. I say it this way every week when I preach. If Colleen was walking down the aisle to marry me, I wouldn't want her sad and depressed. I'd want her expectant. I'd want her excited because we're engaged and we're about to be married. So we're about to see Jesus face to face. So you have all these. Then you even had you had the Mars do a flyby of the sun, does 5 times in a century. It's amazing though that it went down directly over the Temple Mount at sundown. The moon forms a sickle. The planets formed a sickle. Orion changed its instruments to hammer. She had hammer and sickle on the same day. That's Russia's symbol. All of these tangible physical signs and signals are to show us Jesus is just about to come back. Just like a football game, when you got the 2-minute warning, the plays are more crucial at the very end. So the church has to get a 2-minute warning mentality. Well, so what do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. We're more involved than we've ever been involved. We don't skip church, we're engaged. Just like when you're engaged, you talk to your bride-to-be more than you talked to her before. There's an excitement level and a closeness that happens just before we see Jesus face to face. Wow, 12/12/12/12, full moon tonight, so get ready for that. How exciting. Jesus is just about to come back. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.